They said you were unrealistic, too sensitive, too much of a dreamer. Maybe they didn't say it outright. Maybe it was in the silence after you spoke your idea. The half smile that carried pity instead of pride. The way people's eyes drifted away when you started to believe in yourself again. You learned to hide that spark inside you, didn't you? To keep your dreams quiet, small, so no one could laugh at them. But here's the truth, you rarely hear every great mind, every soul that ever changed the world, once stood alone in a room filled with disbelief. Carl Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what he didn't tell you is that before you become who you are, you'll be misunderstood by almost everyone around you. You'll walk through seasons where no one claps for you, where even the people you love most look at you and say, maybe you should be more realistic. But something inside you, something ancient and defiant whispers, I can't stop now. You've probably been there, scrolling late at night, wondering why life seems to favor the loud ones, the lucky ones, the ones who had support when you had silence. And yet, you're still here. You're still searching for meaning, still reaching for something more, not fame, not applause, but that quiet moment where you finally feel, this is who I'm meant to be. So tonight, this isn't just another motivational talk. This is a mirror. A story that might sound like yours, the story of how to move forward when no one believes in you. Because there comes a moment when your loneliness becomes sacred, when the very pain of being unseen becomes the soil for something rare, inner strength. Carl Jung believed that the parts of you that feel broken aren't your weakness. They are your beginning. They are your hidden teachers, waiting for you to stop running and start listening. So stay with me. Take a breath. Let's walk together through the fire of being doubted, unseen, and underestimated, and find out how you rise from it. And before we go deeper, if you've ever felt misunderstood but refused to give up on your light, I want you here. Subscribe, stay close. This space is for the ones who believe quietly. Because this story, it's yours. There's a certain loneliness that settles in when you realize no one truly sees what you're capable of. It's not the kind of loneliness that comes from being alone in a room, it's deeper. It's the feeling of speaking a truth no one seems to hear. You try to explain your dreams, your reasons, your hunger, but people tilt their heads and smile, as if you're describing something that only exists in your imagination. Maybe they mean well. Maybe they want to protect you from disappointment. But to you, it sounds like this: you're not enough. Carl Jung once said that the person you are meant to become is buried beneath everything the world told you to be. And that's the first test life gives you when no one believes in you. Will you still believe in yourself? You might not realize it now, but being unseen is the beginning of your transformation. When the crowd disappears, you're left alone with your truth. That's where your real journey starts, not when people cheer for you, but when they walk away and you decide to keep going anyway. It's strange, isn't it? How we crave validation, how we chase approval like air. We say we want freedom, but secretly, we want to be understood first. Yet the irony is, most people can't understand you until you've already become who you are, until you've already made it. When Jung was a young psychiatrist, his ideas were dismissed by his own peers. He broke away from Freud, the man the world worshipped at the time, and was called arrogant, delusional, even unstable. The community that once embraced him turned their backs. He was exiled from the very system he helped build. But in that silence, he found something extraordinary. He went inward. He stopped chasing external acceptance and began studying the landscapes of the human soul, the dreams, the shadows, the patterns that shaped us all. He learned to listen to the parts of himself that no one else believed in. That's what you're being asked to do too, to stop waiting for permission, to stop shrinking just because the world can't yet see your worth. Every person who ever created something meaningful had a moment where they stood in the dark, wondering if it was all a mistake. You will have those moments too, but remember, this doubt isn't your enemy. Doubt is the proof that you're on the edge of something real. So tonight, as you listen to these words, I want you to pause and feel it, that quiet strength inside you that's been waiting to be trusted. You don't have to have everyone believe in you. You just need to keep the light alive long enough for them to see what you were building all along. Because one day, they will. And when they do, you'll realize that the ones who doubted you were just part of the story, not the ending. There's a point in every person's life when they hit the invisible wall, that moment when effort and faith no longer seem to be enough. You give your all, and nothing moves. You reach out, and no one reaches back. This is the part most people quit. Not because they're weak, but because they mistake silence for rejection. They think if no one applauds, it must mean they're on the wrong path. But what if silence isn't rejection at all? What if it's the sound of the world testing your devotion? Carl Jung would have said that this is where the soul begins its real work, not when the light is bright, but when everything goes dark and you're forced to find your way by instinct. He believed that the unconscious, that vast, mysterious place within, begins to speak only when the noise of the world fades. And maybe that's why life pulls away the voices around you when you're meant to hear your own. You might be standing in the middle of that right now, doubting every choice, every step, feeling like your dreams have gone quiet. But I promise you, something is still moving beneath the surface. Every tear you've shed, every late night moment you've whispered, maybe this isn't for me, it's all part of the reshaping. Jung once wrote about the dark night of the soul, not as punishment, but as preparation. It's the moment the false layers of your identity begin to burn away. The parts of you that needed praise, that needed validation, that lived on other people's approval, they begin to die off. Painfully, but beautifully. Because when the applause stops, you finally learn to listen to your own rhythm. You learn to create, not to be seen, but because something in you must be expressed or you'll suffocate. That's the difference between chasing recognition and living your purpose. There's a quiet kind of power that grows when you stop performing for love and start existing in truth. You no longer need people to understand you. You simply need to be you. And in that rawness, something happens. Your work begins to breathe. Your ideas take shape. The energy you once wasted trying to be accepted returns home to fuel your becoming. And here's the thing, when you start moving from that place, the world eventually notices. Not right away, not even soon, but inevitably. Because truth always echoes louder than pretense. So don't rush your becoming. The ones who doubted you are teaching you the art of patience. The ones who left are teaching you how to stand alone. The silence is teaching you to listen. You are not behind. You are in preparation. Take a breath. You are exactly where the real story begins. You know that moment when you wake up and feel a quiet ache in your chest, the kind that doesn't scream but lingers? It's not sadness exactly. It's more like the weight of untold stories. The ones you keep inside because no one seemed ready to hear them. That ache, that's the sound of your truth knocking. Most people spend their lives avoiding it. They drown it out with busyness, distractions, or other people's expectations. But for the few who dare to listen, that ache becomes their compass. It points them towards something larger, not success, not recognition, but authenticity. Carl Jung believed that every person carries a hidden potential, a kind of divine blueprint that longs to unfold. But it can't awaken in comfort. It needs resistance. It needs doubt. It needs a world that says no, so that you can learn what your yes truly means. Think of all the times you wanted to quit. The nights you told yourself it would be easier to settle. The mornings you looked at yourself and thought, maybe I'm just not built for this. You were wrong. You are built for this, not because you're fearless, but because you've learned to keep walking, even when fear has its hand around your throat. That's strength. That's quiet courage. That's the kind of power that can't be taught, it's earned through surviving what was meant to break you. When no one believes in you, the world is giving you a rare invitation to start believing in yourself so fiercely that no one's disbelief can shake it again. That's what Jung meant when he said the greatest burden is to carry your own potential. Because once you see who you could become, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending you're smaller than you are. It's not easy. Sometimes the ones who doubt you are the people you love most. You want their approval so badly that you start trading pieces of yourself just to keep their comfort. You smile when you want to cry. You agree when your heart screams no. You start becoming what they can handle instead of who you really are. But here's the truth. No amount of shrinking will ever make them love you more. The ones who can't see your light now are not meant to define it. Your task isn't to convince them, it's to become undeniable. And you do that by staying close to the fire inside you, by turning your pain into something holy, by trusting that every time you choose authenticity over approval, you're stepping closer to freedom. So if right now you feel unseen, misunderstood, or underestimated, breathe. You're not lost. You're evolving. The people who don't believe in you are simply the backdrop. You are the story. There's a strange kind of clarity that comes the moment you stop trying to prove yourself. It doesn't arrive with trumpets or revelation, it arrives quietly, like morning light slipping through a half-open curtain. You begin to realize that all those years you spent chasing approval were never really about other people. They were about your longing to feel worthy, to feel that your existence had weight, that your voice mattered. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow not as something dark to be feared, but as the parts of yourself you abandoned to survive. When no one believed in you, you learned to tuck away your boldness, your hunger, your faith in yourself. You learned to be smaller so you could belong. But the soul doesn't forget. Those exiled parts stay alive within you, waiting. They don't die, they whisper. And maybe that's why life feels heavy sometimes, because you're dragging along pieces of yourself that were meant to be free. Think about it. How many times have you dimmed your light to make others comfortable? How many times have you pretended not to care so you wouldn't seem too ambitious? That's not humility, that's fear wearing politeness as a mask. The world doesn't change through those who hide. It changes through those who dare to be seen, even when they shake while doing it. When Jung isolated himself to face his own darkness, he didn't emerge weaker. He came out clearer, not perfect, but real. He discovered that the journey toward wholeness is never about becoming flawless. It's about becoming honest. You might be in that same space now, stripped of illusions, stripped of applause, standing alone with nothing but truth. It feels terrifying, doesn't it? Yet this is the most sacred ground you'll ever walk. Because when everything false falls away, all that's left is you, the raw, trembling, magnificent you that the world tried to make you forget. That's when real progress begins. Not the kind that looks glamorous on the outside, but the kind that transforms you from within. You start to notice that success doesn't feel like proving anything anymore. It feels like coming home. And home isn't a place. It's a self you finally accept. Maybe that's what getting ahead truly means, not running faster, but returning deeper. Not climbing above others, but descending into your truth and rising from it with quiet certainty. So let them doubt. Let them watch from afar. Your task is not to convince them. Your task is to keep walking one truthful step at a time. Because someday, when the noise has faded and the dust settles, they'll see what you built in silence, and it will make sense. It always does, in hindsight. For now, breathe into your becoming. You're not falling behind. You're unfolding. There's something sacred about the season when no one claps for you. It's the silence that teaches you to listen not to the world, but to the quiet voice beneath the noise, the one that says, keep going. At first, that silence feels cruel. You post your work, and no one responds. You speak your truth, and people change the subject. You pour your heart out, and it echoes back empty. It makes you wonder if maybe they were right, maybe you should have chosen something safer, something more acceptable. But listen carefully. Silence is not failure. It's refinement. It's the universe clearing the stage so you can meet yourself. Carl Jung believed that the moments of isolation we dread the most are actually the ones that forge our soul. He said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." Think about that. It's not about the absence of people. It's about the absence of resonance. So if you've been speaking truth into a void, it doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're early. It means you're carrying a frequency others haven't tuned into yet. And the lonelier it feels, the closer you are to something pure. There's a story not from textbooks, but from life itself, about people who kept showing up when no one cared. Writers who wrote when no one read. Artists who painted when no one bought. Thinkers who spoke when no one listened. What carried them wasn't applause. It was devotion. You have that same devotion. You wouldn't still be here if you didn't. The world has a strange rhythm it celebrates you when you no longer need celebration. It loves you when you've already learned to love yourself. And that's the paradox Jung understood deeply. Once you stop chasing validation, you begin to attract it. Because people can sense when you are rooted in your truth. They may not understand your journey, but they'll feel the gravity of your presence. So, if you're tired of being misunderstood, maybe stop explaining. You don't owe anyone a translation of your soul. The ones meant to walk with you will learn your language in time. Keep planting seeds, even in the dark. Keep working when no one's watching. That's not delusion, that's faith in motion. The kind of faith that makes history quietly in ordinary rooms. You might not see it yet, but one day you'll look back and realize every lonely night, every unanswered message, every invisible effort, it all mattered. It built the version of you who doesn't crumble when ignored, who doesn't chase to be seen, because you finally see yourself. And that's when you begin to rise, not from pride, but from peace. There will come a day when you stop asking, "When will they see me?" and start whispering, "I see me." That day doesn't arrive with fireworks. It comes quietly, like dawn after a sleepless night, slow, gentle, undeniable. You'll wake up and realize you no longer crave the applause that once fed you. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to convince anyone. You just are. That's the kind of power Carl Jung spoke about, not the power to control, but the power to integrate. To gather all your lost fragments, the child who was ignored, the dreamer who was mocked, the believer who was betrayed, and bring them home. To stand in your truth without flinching, it's a strange freedom. You stop chasing timelines. You stop comparing your journey to anyone else's. You begin to understand that getting ahead was never about moving faster, it was about moving truer. About walking in alignment with what you know to be real, even when the world calls it foolish. There's a softness that comes with this kind of awakening. You stop arguing with life. You stop fighting the current. You begin to see that every rejection was protection. Every closed door was a redirection. Every person who didn't believe in you was simply an echo asking, "Will you still believe in yourself when no one else does?" And when your answer is yes, something shifts. You start creating not from fear, but from fullness. You no longer perform to be loved, you express, because love already lives in you. The emptiness that once scared you becomes the very space that births your best work. Jung once described individuation, the process of becoming whole, as a kind of rebirth. But rebirth is never clean. It's messy. It's painful. It's the kind of transformation that asks you to lose everything that isn't you, so that what's left is real. You will lose people. You will outgrow rooms. You will be misunderstood by those still trapped in their own fear. But none of that is failure. It's evidence that you're evolving. And soon, you'll find yourself surrounded not by crowds, but by kindred spirits, people who don't just see your light, but speak its language. They'll find you not because you shouted loudest, but because you stood still long enough to shine. That's how you get ahead when no one believes in you. By believing so completely in your own truth that the world has no choice but to catch up. So breathe. Look how far you've come. All the battles no one saw. All the nights you kept going. Even when your faith was cracked and shaking. You've become the person you once needed. And that's the quiet victory no one can take away. One day, you'll catch your reflection not in a mirror, but in a moment, and realize something's changed. You don't flinch at your own presence anymore. You don't apologize for existing or for wanting more than survival. There's peace in your eyes, not because life became easier, but because you finally stopped running from yourself. That's when you understand what Jung meant when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." For so long, you thought the world was against you. The rejection, the silence, the disbelief. But now you see it wasn't the world. It was your own reflection asking you to wake up. Every doubt someone threw at you was a mirror for your own. Every time someone said, "You can't," the real test was whether you'd believe them. The journey wasn't about proving them wrong, it was about proving to yourself that you could still walk even when the path disappeared. You start noticing small things now, how your breath feels steadier when you trust yourself, how time doesn't scare you anymore, how the things you used to chase recognition, approval, belonging don't taste the same. They were never nourishment, they were distraction. Now what feeds you is different. It's the sound of your own integrity. It's the feeling of being in alignment with what you were born to do. You begin to see that believing in yourself isn't arrogance. It's stewardship. It's caring for the gift life planted in you, even when no one else can see it bloom. Jung spent years walking in solitude, learning that true confidence doesn't roar. It whispers. It lives quietly inside those who have met their own darkness and survived. The ones who've fallen apart and rebuilt, not out of pride, but out of necessity. The ones who've realized that you can't control how people see you, but you can control whether you keep shining. You start forgiving not just others, but yourself, for all the times you hid, for all the times you doubted, for all the moments you settled for less because it felt safer than being alone. Forgiveness softens you, but it doesn't make you weaker. It makes you magnetic. Because healed people don't chase, they attract. And suddenly, opportunities begin to appear not because you're luckier, but because you're clearer. You're no longer chasing noise, you're responding to resonance. This is what happens when you stay the course, when you keep believing even when the world goes quiet. You don't just get ahead, you transcend the need to compete altogether. You rise in your own lane with grace. So if today still feels heavy, remember, it's not the end, it's the unfolding. The world may not see it yet, but something extraordinary is forming in you, something unbreakable, unstoppable, unmistakably yours. Keep going. You're closer than you think. There will be moments, small, quiet ones, when you'll feel it. Not the rush of validation, not the applause, but that subtle hum inside that says, "This is it." You'll be sitting alone, doing what you love, no witnesses, no spotlight, and something will shift. That ache you carried for years will soften. The hunger to be seen will fade, replaced by something pure contentment. You'll realize that you no longer need to be understood by everyone because you understand yourself. You'll start to notice that the same silence that once frightened you now feels like home. That's what Jung called integration, when all your fractured pieces stop fighting each other and finally sit at the same table. The part of you that was scared, the part that wanted to prove something, the part that was always trying to please. They all get a voice now. They all belong. And in that belonging, your energy changes. You no longer chase people or opportunities, they begin to flow toward you, drawn by the steadiness in your spirit. The universe trusts those who trust themselves. You'll start creating from love instead of fear. You'll write, build, paint, lead not because you need to prove your worth, but because you can't help but express what's real inside you. Your work will carry a different frequency, one that speaks directly to others who are still lost in the noise. Because here's the truth. Once you've walked through the valley of disbelief, you become the kind of person who can light the way for others. You'll meet people who remind you of your old self, timid, unsure, craving proof, and you'll look at them with tenderness, not judgment. You'll want to tell them, you don't need permission. You are enough right now, even before they see it. And maybe that's the greatest reward, not the success, not the recognition, but becoming a living reminder that it's possible to make it through, to rise from invisibility with your heart intact. The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more honest ones, more souls willing to tell the truth about how hard it is to believe when no one else does, and how beautiful it becomes once you do. So if you're listening to this, and you're still waiting for someone to see your worth, let this be your sign. Stop waiting. You've already been chosen by the very dream that keeps returning to you. That dream is not random. It's not an illusion. It's your soul remembering what it came here to do. And maybe that's what Jung meant all along. You don't need the world's belief to move forward. You only need your own. Because once you believe deeply enough, the world eventually follows. Stay with yourself. Keep your heart open. The story isn't ending, it's beginning to shine.